So welcome to another wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at Siege of Mantua from Hollandspiele.
Dun dun dun.
This is a two-player Napoleonics block wargame.
What did you say?
A
block war game?
Yes, a block wargame from Hollandspiele.
That was scripted, just very poorly scripted.
Yes.
The timing was off.
We've never heard of
No.
one of those before because they've never done one. So this game's designed by Amabel Holland, and famously, she does not like block wargames.
No.
Block wargames, not everyone's taste. That is very well known. Like,
Yeah.
people love them or they hate them.
I've always enjoyed them.
Yeah.
Every time we've played one, I love the concept of not knowing what I'm attacking.
Yes, and typically speaking, block wargames are often fairly. They're on the lighter end of the scale as
yes.
well. So
More quick
it's like a light,
playing.
quick playing
Yep.
game, and that's fun. That like has its space. But the story.
Yeah,
the
it's a great
behind
story.
The game
I think it's a great story.
is a number of years ago, Hollandspiele signed a game by Mark Herman.
A game by Mark Herman?
So Mark Herman of Empire of the Sun, that Mark Herman, he designed a game, and I'm pretty sure they were just like, yeah, we'll print whatever you want. And so
It had Mark Herman's name on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
he designed a children's game that was called Ribbit, I believe, and it was about frogs. Is
Yeah.
my understanding of it. That is where my knowledge ends. I don't know if you know anything more about that.
no.
But
Dueling frogs of some kind.
so that he designs this game, and it has these like great chunky wooden components that come in red and blue.
Referred to as blocks in the wargaming community.
Yes. Anyway, a number of years later,
Well, I think that Amabel ordered, these are some of the things they had to order because they're different than just the printed maps or the counters.
Yes.
So they ordered cases. How many cases? I don't know. Probably 30 cases, right? They thought the game would do really well. And I hope we're not like twisting the knife.
it probably did well enough. But
Right.
suffice
Didn't
to
do as
say-
well as they thought, and they had extra blocks.
Yes, a few years later, there
A
were
lot of extra
piles of
blocks.
these blocks, and it's not like these blocks were stored in a warehouse. It's these blocks were stored in boxes in their bedroom.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
taking up space. So they're like, what can we do with them?
And we've all got stuff in our bedroom that we're like, why is that still here? Or
Yes.
why do we keep that here? Yeah.
We've all got
So it's not that
piles of-
uncommon. Yeah.
But so basically, they turned all of these spare blocks that they had into a block war game, and these blocks are massive.
They are very big.
I know it's an optical illusion. I do have small hands, but these big players look very small if they were normal size.
I think this is about 3 times the size of a normal.
Yeah, this
block.
is a 2-inch block, right? That's 2
Yeah, I
inches,
would think so.
say, ish. But suffice to say, all these blocks. What do we do with them? Block war game. So she kind of got. Or they kind of got pigeonholed into making a block war game just
Yeah.
to solve a logistical issue, which was cool. But basically,
And fortunately, they made a pretty interesting little game.
yes, they did. The neat part is no stickers in this game. These they're like, I don't know how you would describe
Screen
it.
printed,
Yeah, they're
maybe?
like, but it's printed on here, so that the components of this game are gorgeous. But
Yeah.
effectively, you have this 2-player point-to-point movement Napoleonics war game set in 1793, and this is the French are sieging Mantua, and it's the Austrians are trying to lift
Break that
right?
siege, yeah.
That's the game, and it's a game of kind of maneuvering around the board, consolidating your forces, and trying to decisively win a single very large battle or a couple small ones if that's the route that you're going to go, and you win by destroying enemy blocks. And both sides have 10 blocks to start with, which have different compositions, and the first person to kind of have destroyed 5 or more of the opponents is going to win the game most of the time.
Or kill find a
Yes.
leader alone with no blocks.
Yeah, if you kill an army and
Napoleon was
there
with
was
them.
2 blocks and the Napoleon, if you kill the 2 blocks and he's left alone, you instantly lose the game.
Yeah.
And it's the reverse for the Austrians if they leave their leader alone with a couple blocks. So it's the map is what was cool about this is the map physically is large. I think it's 22 by 34.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest map I've seen from Hollandspiele.
Yes.
Right?
But strategically in game turns, the map is very small.
Well, there's about 15 spots, maybe.
Yeah, and it's a
15,
point, and
16.
the way that the connections go and the shape of the map, it's a really tight game with regards to maneuvering. But you'll end up, I don't know, more often than not having maybe 2 stacks of large blocks, or maybe even 1. And so the maneuver in this game is quite different to a lot of other block war games where you got all these things like stacking limits and all these border limits that you can move across. So you end up here. It feels quite Napoleonic. Consolidate your forces together. Here's 20,000 men pitched against your 30,000 men, and let's go for it.
Yeah.
And the other difference to this is unlike a lot of block war games where you the Columbia style ones where you chuck some dice and have priorities. You physically have a battle board, and you have all your forces, and you draw force chits and you lay them out, and then you fight a little Napoleonic battle on a grid.
Yeah, there's a little tactical process here, and while it's not in-depth strategy, I mean, there's some definite things you're trying to do.
It's not an in-depth simulation, is what I would say.
Right.
It's quite abstract. And
Yeah.
It's a fun little abstract on a grid
Yep.
of positioning and managing your very limited commands that you have, and you're also typically racing against the clock.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole other thing as well, because after the set number of turns that you've rolled for, after that you get into this whole doubling cube where it's raising the stakes.
Yeah.
You raise the stakes and you say, cool, whoever loses now will take double the losses, and you can either choose to accept that or just to retreat and you lose with your minimal losses, or you can accept that. And then you fight on, and then you raise the stakes and give it back to your opponent, and it goes, and the stakes keep getting raised until someone's getting annihilated.
I really thought that was an interesting part of the game, because there comes a point where it's like, okay, I can't really realistically accept that. So I'm just going to, you don't really want to fight to the death, though. So you really got to manage that well.
Yeah.
Taking 1 or 2 losses from retreating is way better than losing everything and losing 3 blocks.
Yes.
And you've got to play that. I would like to play this a lot more and really, because our 3 or 4 battles, system, I'm not sure it really became so clear to us how to do this or why you would do, but it's a neat little element. The doubling concept is very cool.
And there's so much risk in it.
Because
the little tactical battles, kind of a dice fest, right?
And to me, that's what's good about it, because
fun.
It's light and fun, but you really have a chance of winning against great odds.
Yes.
Or losing, even though everything's in your favor.
And that's why I like the raising the stakes, because you can be an aggressor, and if you've got yourself into a good position, you're like, cool, I'm going to raise the stakes.
Yep.
And if you're a fun gambling type of gamer, you're like, yeah, I'll take that.
Yep.
And then it's like, I'm going to hang on for a little bit. I'm going to raise the stakes back at you. And then if you roll some doubles and then I have a good roll, all of a sudden you thought you were in a great commanding position.
You're done.
And you're like, oh no.
And rolling doubles means that one of your troops
instead of successfully attacking, it's a counterattack and your unit dies.
Yeah.
So it's losing units on your own turn is always bad in games, right? Losing them on your opponent's turn is a different story.
Well, and it was pretty funny. We read the rules. We talked about the rules. But I think the first time you rolled doubles, you were like, ooh, that double rule. And I was sitting there going, oh, crap. Is that to his advantage?
Oh, is it double hits?
And then you read that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Take that all day long.
Yeah, I rolled the doubles and was like, oh, yeah, there was a doubles rule. Like, oh, not good. Not good.
But it's pretty funny how the dice are very swingy, because I think I rolled doubles 3 turns in a row kind of late in that one really big battle we had.
And it cripples you.
Yeah, it just breaks your back, but it's still fun and light. The cool concept I liked about the combat mechanic and the use of the board, it's all about your command points. How many command points do you have? And if you don't have a leader, you have 3.
Yeah.
So that means each turn, you're only going to be able to move a couple of stacks, because it's 1 command point for each counter in the stack that you're moving or attacking.
Yes.
So you're only going to be able to maybe move 1 stack and attack with 1 stack. You can't move and attack, right?
Nope.
You're move and you're spent. But getting a leader in those battles, and I think that was something I was trying to do, was get my Napoleon to give me that advantage, because all of a sudden then you have 5 command points. And going with 5 command points against someone who has 3 command points.
Big difference.
Huge difference, because I'm going to get at least 1, if not 2, additional attacks per turn.
It does exactly what you think it would do. You can attack more. You can maneuver more. And it really, like, having a difference in command really shows itself on a battlefield.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really neat way of doing that.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of that board that I enjoyed is it is abstract, right? All your pieces are just kind of generic pieces, and they have different values on them, but you still have the flank attack stuff. Right?
Yeah.
That's parts of the flavor. I got my battle line, but if you
I've got some cavalry coming up on the
outflank
side or something.
that can be very strong. So
Because
you get some of that flavor in it too.
Yeah, that flanking attack basically attacks all the units in that formation.
Yes.
Now you still roll the same 2 dice. The way the combat system works is units are 7, 8s, and 9s on their morale, I believe.
And you have to roll more.
So if you're going up against a 7, you only hit on an 8+ on 2d6. Now, that seems easy to roll. My gosh, how many times do we roll 7 or 6? But that's the fun of the game too. I kept watching your dice as they were hitting the table, and the moment I saw a 1, I was exultant, because I knew I'm good. I don't care if you roll a 6 on the other one. You didn't hit me. But that flank attack is so powerful, because you're attacking everything.
Yes.
So if you roll hot, you roll once. If you roll like a 10, I can kill all 3 or 4. Is it the stacking limit 3?
Stacking limit 3, yeah.
So I could kill all 3 of those units in that hex. The other thing that's very cool is you want to put your big units up front.
Yeah, typically you attack front to back.
Yeah.
If you're doing front-on attacks. So yeah, you put your big guys up front, and then you have your weak guys at the back.
Yep.
But yeah, if those guys get flanked and it's a good roll,
yeah,
they all go.
Very cool little combat system. I really liked the abstract maneuvering. I liked the command points. I thought that was very well done. We also talked about the board. We kind of, after we played, we were like, okay, what if we did this, as we normally do?
Yep.
You move some blocks here, and I'm like, okay, I would do this to counter that, and I would bring this here. And all of a sudden, we're going to end up fighting basically almost every time if you want to do it that way. You don't have to, but you could bring a decisive battle like right outside Mantua.
Yes.
But you don't have to do that. You can try to maneuver around, but what I want to say, though, is you can't just move around forever.
No,
the game doesn't end in 12 turns and, I survived. That's not the way you win the game.
No.
You got to do 5 blocks, so you've got to be attacking. What you're looking for are the battles that you can decisively win. That I can roll in with 8 or 10 counters, and you only have 2 blocks that maybe have 5 counters. Oh, and then I've got a leader. You don't have a leader. I'm most likely going to win that battle. So you want to look for those, but they're harder to find than you think.
And I think, now that we've been talking about this, I feel like, and I could be wrong, I feel like that is a trait of a number of Amabel's games, is that it's like the game's like even, balance, and then you get to like a point and it's like, it's over. I think about something like With It or On It.
Yeah.
Right?
When things start breaking, it's over.
Yeah, it breaks very quickly. And this game can turn extremely quickly as well. Like, within its tactical battle, or like strategically on the board, you will get to a point where it's like, okay, like we both have effectively the same victory conditions. Like, we have to kill each other. Like, there comes a point where it has to be done, and it will happen.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I feel like there's a number of games that she's designed that have a similar type of ethos. I don't know if that's a design thing that she does, but it's interesting because the game starts with the Austrians kind of on 2 halves of the map. They can't do anything, but like the Napoleon's French forces are also a little bit spread out, and it's got to get them all together, and then like right at that last moment, hopefully you've got your forces together and you get this crescendo and there's a huge battle, and it's like, do you fight to the death because
Or
it's
do you-
risky, or
do
do
you
you
retreat?
take the
Yep.
retreat, we'll take a little bit of damage,
And
then
live to
refresh
fight
for
another
another day.
Yep. And that is also a very key strategy, and because the board is divided in two.
Yeah.
You've got your pocket of Austrian troops here over on the west, I'm going to say.
Yes.
And because you're cut off, you can really only move
One or the
other.
side, yeah.
So if you're taking your big group up here in Friuli, maybe I'm saying that Friuli, and you're moving towards Mantua, these guys are going to sit here.
They're doing nothing.
Right? Because they're out of communication. Now, a good Napoleon player could do any number of things. You could play cat and mouse with that big army, kind of maneuvering yourself where you get it to a pinch point where, I can bring in 2 armies now.
Yeah, and you can counter that.
And really counter that. But that's also a trap. What I tried to do was to isolate and kind of pick off your guys up here. It ultimately didn't work for me. I rolled really well those first couple of combats, and then after that, it just went really poorly.
Yeah.
But I do think there's 3 types of strategies. One of them we said, well, you'd have to be brain dead to kind of that to succeed. But we're making that judgment just on our review of the rules, play of the game, discussion, moving things around, trying to understand. But there are some different choices here, and ultimately everything comes down to these dice.
Yes.
Everything. And I think that's cool because it's going to add to the replayability. There's not such a numerical advantage, although the Austrians do have a numerical advantage.
They do, yes.
They have 10 blocks, 2 leaders, 8 units. Napoleon has 10 blocks, 1 leader, but 3 dummy units that do nothing.
Yeah, they do nothing and they just die.
So in effect, Napoleon has 6 attacking units, whereas the Austrians have 7?
They have 8.
8. So it's 8 to 6.
One of them, because one of the leaders is stuck in Mantua.
Right. So it's 7. So he has 7. The red has 7. The blue has 6, basically. So you've got to be aware of that, and you've got to plan out some different things and try, and you got to get lucky. And I think ultimately, every commander will tell you they got to have some good strategy, but it all comes down to a lucky break, or
you can only plan so much in games, especially.
Something happens, an artillery strike does a really great job, or a cavalry charge really works, and I could bring 1 unit up against 3 units of yours on a flank attack, and you know what? If I roll a 10, wiped out.
Yep.
If that happens, that's going to happen in the game from time to time. That could turn the tide. And that's what battle's about.
And it turns it really quickly.
Really quickly.
Like, if that happens to you, you're like,
yeah, you just feel sick inside.
Because you're like, this is done. And when that roll comes up, you're like, oh crap, I have to retreat now.
Yeah.
There's
I don't have a choice.
No other option.
Yeah.
If you lose all your pieces on the tactical map, all the corresponding blocks that were in that combat immediately die. You can lose the game that way very easily.
Yep.
So you're like, oh crap. So you're desperately trying to pull your troops back or consolidate your forces tactically so that you can eke it out to the end of the round so that you can then retreat. That's a really neat thing to think about. That's very much at the forefront of this game that I think a lot of other games don't.
Kind of gloss over.
It's not quite as focused. Yeah.
The other thing I really like about the battle board is you roll, is it 2d6 to decide the number of rounds? And it's not the number, it's number of spaces. So if I roll I rolled an 11.
There's an 11 spot.
There's not 11 spaces.
No.
It is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 8, right? So it goes down by a couple. So that's bad, right? I can't survive that long.
Yeah, it can be bad.
Right.
It can be very good.
It can be. If you have a small force, you're kind of like, I'm hoping for a 3.
Yeah, you're desperately hoping for that 2 or 3.
I rolled a 3. All of a sudden, I can survive 3 rounds, and I can retreat with less impact.
Yes.
And that was the funny thing. In our first battle, I asked that very question. I think, no, maybe it was the first battle that you engaged in. You rolled, and I think you rolled a 3, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe you rolled a 4.
I asked high on my one.
And I asked myself, because you had to move all the way up, I'm like, hell, I'm just going to let you move up, and then I'm going to attack you when you... Because I was trying to kind of survive to the end. Because I knew I couldn't
Yeah,
really,
there's no
I
point in
couldn't
you
really
moving forward.
slug it out. So there were a lot of interesting choices. I guess is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. I actually really liked this game. I had a good time playing it, and I thought was very unique.
Yeah, especially in a world where a lot of block war games are unique only because of theme and map, effectively, this one felt quite different. Yeah, all the blocks, they
Yeah.
got their numbers on them, you turn them, sure. But, like, the battles that you resolve, quite different from most
Very
of the other
different.
games. And
Even the effects of those battles are very interesting.
Yes.
We didn't really talk a whole lot about you're going to if you lose, you're going to downgrade your chits.
but if you win, you upgrade,
upgrade
some,
them.
and always downgrade the ones that die.
So if you win, you're going to trade a 2-8 in for a 3-9. That's a huge difference because that 3-9 now is only killed on 10 or higher.
Yeah.
Whereas the 8 is killed on a 9 or higher, and that makes a huge difference.
And all your other ones that get downgraded are like, oh, they're now like 7s. You're like, ooh.
And that sucks. So you put those in the back and you cover them up.
What I'll do is we've talked a lot. I will show you how this stuff works, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. So here's a look at the map, and as you can see, it's again 22 by 34, so volumetrically normal size map, but there's the volume of spaces and connections. It's a very small, tight map to play on. As a block war game, you have your blocks. These are the French ones in blue and the Austrian ones in red, and they're going to face towards the direction you're sitting so that the player opposite you can't see what your blocks are. And so you're going to take turns, and you're just going to move your blocks around on the board, and you're going to be able to initiate combats. And so the neat thing about the way the game works is that you can move all of your blocks that are in communication. Now, what does in communication mean? It's kind of what you would think. It's everyone who's connected together. And you think there's a centralized commander. It's Napoleon in this case. I think Napoleon's down here, this little block. He can send messengers and he can talk to everyone so everyone can move around. The Austrians, on the other hand, these guys up here, there's no connection that isn't blocked by French blocks to these guys and the commander up here. So in this instance, you can activate either these guys or these guys. And that's the case. It's throughout the game, the situation's fluid. If you're able to split the French forces, you'd only be able to activate half the French forces. Or guys get isolated, it's a choice between do I move my main force or those little forces there. So kind of initially, you're trying to link up the two Austrian forces, potentially, and then take Mantua and kill as many French blocks as you can. The French are trying to keep this divided as long as possible so that the Austrians, who have a numerical advantage, can't take advantage of that as easily. And it's a really neat concept. But when you move, you're going to move from kind of this city to this city. That's like a regular move, regular move, regular moves. You can split guys, you can move one here and here. You can also there's a couple like special moves you can do. You can just, any two blocks, you can switch them. Those then can't move subsequently in that turn, but you can do that. Or you can do the old classic kind of reinforcing. So if you've got a block that has 3 or more pips on it, these are all the 2s, of course. Where's my good blocks at? I'm looking at it backwards. Okay, so this guy up here who has 4, I could turn him down to a 3, and then I could bump up my 2 up to a 3. So you can redistribute some of your forces from strong ones to weak ones. You can do that. As again, that's their move for the turn. They can't then subsequently move, but that's kind of your options. It's moving around. Now, the neat part is, and here, I'll just set this up. Something that's really cool in this game that I really, really appreciated is that normally you move from city to city, but you'll note in some of the areas there are these points. There's not in some of the other ones, but basically if this city is occupied, you don't just move to that city, right? You have to move to this point first, and then on a subsequent turn you launch that attack. It's kind of a moving and preparing and setting up a battle, and it also does represent a larger amount of distance between the two. But that only takes effect if this final destination is occupied. So this is 1 move, this is 2 moves. But if there's guys in the way, this is 1 move, this is a 2nd move. If they retreat, then this is a 3rd move, then this is a 4th. So you can play some cat and mouse in this game and really delay forces by doing that. That's really interesting. That was always fun. But effectively, you're trying to get yourself into combats, and like a block war game, you then are going to reveal your pieces, and based on the strength of them, you're going to do combat. Now, it is a little bit different how that works. So normally in block war games, this is how many dice you roll. But how it works in this one is you have this tactical board, and whoever the aggressor is, and we'll say it's the Austrians in this one, you're going to reveal pieces back and forth. They have their leader, so they're going to get 5 commands. The French do not have a leader. In fact, they have a dummy. And when you reveal a dummy, the dummy immediately dies, and that's a victory point to the other player. So they only get 3 commands because they don't have a leader. And what you're going to do, and I'm kind of just showing you this out of order, but you're going to reveal your blocks one at a time, alternating. And so you can get into some interesting choices about bluffing people for setup. So the aggressor always reveals their first one first, I believe. So I'm saying I'm going to reveal this guy. He's got 2. That's the number that's face up. So you have this pool of chits, and that's set up at the beginning. And they're gonna you're gonna choose 2 out of there randomly. And we got a 2-8 and a 2-8. Those are not half bad. And you're gonna line them up somewhere in your kind of tactical board. So we'll put those guys here. So that's kind of one of them. Now the French are going to do the same thing. They're going to pull 2, which is a 2-1 to do. And they're going to pull 2 guys. And they pulled a 3-9 and a 2-8. And we'll put those on the board as well. And you're trying to fill up your kind of battle board. And so then it goes back to the Austrians. And so I'll just kind of pull. But you get the idea. But you can kind of pull your weak ones first, to like try and figure out what they might do, or you might pull out some real big ones and just kind of like set up a big block of troops, and then your enemy has to kind of react to the strong forces you're putting out. So we're going to put up 1, 2, 3, and there's a stacking limit of 3 in each of these spaces, and that's kind of corresponds to like how many they can fit in there as well. So and then these guys have 2, so they'll put 1, 2. And then we've got another 3. This is a very bad combat for the French. They don't have a lot of forces. So they've done 2 and 2. We've got 4 in there, so they'll get their 3 more. Because and why that's important is because you do not want to get outflanked in this game. You really, really want to avoid that where possible. So you almost want to fill out the whole thing, if you can. So we've got 2 and 4. So we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll get 1, 2. And we almost had 15. If ever you happen to have more than 15, it's full, and so the rest of them are wasted. So there is kind of a max limit of guys you can put into the combat. But now what we do is we're going to roll to see how long the battle is going to be. So we're going to roll 2d6, and we rolled a 7, and so we put the time marker on the 7. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds of regular combat, and then after that we get into this doubling cube and retreats and things like that. So these numbers that you roll don't correspond to the exact number of turns that you get into combat. It's more of it's a distribution. So if you roll a 12, you're only getting 3 more turns. But you go to the closest one rounded down that you can go to, I believe is what it was. And then you're going to alternate, again, starting with the aggressor, spending your commands to activate your units. To activate this box of units costs 3 of my commands because there's 3 units in it. This one only costs 2 because there's only 2 units. This one 1, right? So I'm going to spend all my commands. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and we're going to move these guys up here, And then I'm going to spend the last 2 to move these guys here. And then it goes to the French player. They're going to spend 1, 2 to move here, and then 1 to move here. Oops. And those are supposed to be secret under it. That was first round of combat done. So then we go to the next round of combat, and you're going to fill up your commands again. And it's a case of, do we want to do some combats? Do we want to do some maneuvers? And what we'll do is we'll go 1, 2, 3 to move these guys up. So that way it stops them from moving in and flanking us. And then we're going to spend the last 2 to do an attack, just to see what that looks like. So to do an attack, you just roll 2d6. Oh, we rolled very well. That's about as good as you can roll. And what you're going to do is you're going to compare this number to the morale value of the first guy in the space. And so the positioning that you put them in when you're setting up is important. 11 is bigger than 8, so we kill this guy. Or we like break him. So he's gone off the map. And you keep attacking until you do not exceed that morale value. So we're going to roll again. And we rolled a 7. And we're going to flip this guy over and compare it. He has a 7. So we match, but we don't exceed. So that attack fails. So that's the end of the attack. But if you had succeeded at that, you would kill him. And so if you get lucky rolls, you can kill like a whole stack of dudes. Or more often than not, you're going to roll very averagely and you're going to bounce off a lot. So that was that turn. So now the Frenches, they're going to spend 1, 2 to move these guys up. Because again, we're going to preventing the Austrians from flanking us. And then we'll spend 1 to do an attack. We'll do this attack here. And again, your units don't have an attack value. This 7 is a defensive value. That's all it is. You're just going to roll 2d6, no modifiers, basically, and you're just going against the defensive factors. The little 1 here and the 2 here, there's 3 and 4. That's just the rank, the quality of the counters, and you'll see that at the end of the combat here, why that's important. Guys who die, he'll get reduced to a 1, so he'll be a 1/7. You take him out of the counter mix, and you'll replace him in the counter mix with this guy. So next time you draw troops in combat, there'll be a worse composition. Or some guys can get promoted if you win battles as well. So what do we say we're going to do? These guys attacking here? I think that's what we said we were going to do. Yeah, sure, why not? No, these guys on here. Sure. It doesn't. No, we'll go here, because if we get lucky, we can kill more guys. So we're going to attack. And we rolled exceedingly well. The highest defensive value is a 9, so we know we've killed the first guy. And killing a 9, 3-9 up at the front is very strong. So he's dead. And we keep going until we fail. And we rolled a 7, so that doesn't beat the 8, so then the combat stops at that point. And then we go to the next turn, and we're going to fill up our commands, and we're going to go again. So I think what we'll do at this point is that we're going to spend 1, 2, 3 to bring these guys up, and then we'll spend 1, 2 to attack here, because this is a really easy one to defeat. And we're going to roll 2d6, and we rolled a 7. Oh, with 5, 6, 7, 8, so we do succeed, and he's going to be killed. And in fact, you're going to keep doing this back and forth. So what we haven't mentioned is that you can pivot 90 degrees after you move. So there's a couple of exceptions to that. If you move here, these guys are mutually engaged. They cannot turn. Okay, and nor can they move away from that. You got to kill them. But these guys could move here, and they could turn 90 degrees. Now, this is called a flanking attack. And no matter how many guys you have here, normally this would be 2 to attack with them. A flanking attack always only costs 1. So it's cheaper. And in this instance, you roll. And let's say you had rolled one of those sweet, sweet 11s. Think of it as like a shotgun blast. This applies to every single one. You don't have to make those re-rolls. So you're going to flip both of these guys, and you apply 11 to both of them. You're going to kill them both, like in one die roll. So you don't have to roll, and you roll well, and then roll again for the second guy, and you roll poorly. Flanking attacks are very, very, very destructive. If you can get them to go, they're really good, but that's half the game, is the positioning and trying to outflank and outmaneuver each other. Now, this is going extremely poorly for the Frenches, and if you get to the end of this, you then start getting into, hey, I'm just going to retreat, and you can leave the combat. Because if we kill every single blue unit off the map, these 3 blocks that went in are eliminated from the game, and we already got one for the dummy, and if we eliminate all of these, you need 5 to win, and we've already got 4. So losing combats and being annihilated on the tactical map is very, very bad. So you have to, it's trying to survive these combats if you're at a disadvantage, trying to survive and then retreat. Because when you retreat, you're going to just get a step reduction and you're going to move out of that combat space. And then when you lose a combat, all your guys who died get reduced in quality based on what's available in your pool. So this 4, he's going to become a 3, and we get rid of that. This 3, we're going to get rid of him. He's going to become a 2, and I don't have any 2s in my pool, and so that's one where we actually kind of lucked out on that. He's going to stay where he is. But 1, 2, 3, 4 2s are going to become 1, 2, 3, 4 1s. We're going to get rid of all those. And you have to do them in that order of what's available. And then the 1s can't get any worse than they are. So where we had a really nice army going into it, this is now an awful army. And those just go back into this chip pool so that next time we fight a battle, we're much worse off for it. Now the winners are going to do the same thing. All the guys who died, they're going to get degraded. But all... is it all their guys? Oh, I don't remember how many it was. Now I've said that out loud. Blah, 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 blah. For each blocks that took part in the battle. Okay, so the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks took part in the battle, and that means I can upgrade 6 of my surviving units, not the dead ones. And so you're going to flip all these over, and you can upgrade 6 of these. And so, you know, do you take your really crappy ones and make them slightly better, or do you take your, 3s that are very good and make them exceedingly good as 4s? Why that's important, and it's something that didn't come up in this example, and we'll show you what that looks like. Let's say we got these 2 guys, and they're going up against these dudes here. Let's do that. So the cool thing about this game, we talked about it, is the doubles. When you attack, if you roll doubles, so this 10 would normally kill this French unit, but because we rolled doubles, this is a counterattack, and doubles always eliminates you. Like that attack was rebutted, and you took a ton of damage doing the attack. What's nice, and why the 4 with the 9 asterisk is important, right? It's the same defensive value as the 3, but that asterisk makes you immune to this kind of counterattack, this rebuttal attack. So if these guys roll a 10, it doesn't matter. We don't eliminate ourselves. We still kill the opponent in that guy. But you only have like 3 or 4 of those in your counter mix, and keeping those elite guys in the battle is quite difficult. So that's a really fun aspect of the game, and it's always unpredictable because you'll roll doubles at the worst possible times, and it can really turn battles if you roll doubles in a couple times in a row. It can be brutal. So that's why the 4-9 is a little bit different. If at the end of this no one wants to retreat and you want to keep hashing it out, what happens is the player to go has this doubling cube. So it has 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. You say, okay, we're going to double the stakes, which means if you lose, instead of taking 1 step loss, you're going to take 2 step losses if you retreat at this point. Now, the player can either accept the raising of the stakes and the doubling, or they can say, fine, I'm out. And they can accept it, it's totally fine, and you can play around a combat, and the attack is then done with their turn. Now that defender, it's their turn, they can either retreat and take that 2 penalty, or they can raise the stakes again. And you have to keep raising the stakes back and forth, and you say, okay, Mr. Austrian, we're going to raise the stakes again. You can either retreat at a 2-step loss, or you can keep fighting, but whoever loses from this point on, or who retreats from this point on, is going to take 4-step losses, which is like losing a whole block, basically. Or you're going to reduce all your blocks to like 1s. and you can keep going until there's some really decisive stuff, but there comes a point when you get to like 8 or 16 or 32, like at that point you're all in and it's going to be decisive and someone's going to lose that battle and everyone's going to be dead. And so doing this and doing it judiciously there's a bit of nuance to that, but it's a really neat facet of the game where it's like, the longer these style Napoleonic battles go, the more dangerous it is for both sides, with fatigue and units breaking, and then it's like going to destroy your whole army. And there's a bit of luck and a bit of, push your luck sportsmanship in that, which I think is a really nice aspect to the game and fun. I don't know how to do this efficiently, like where to take advantage of it, but this is a fun little mini game between the two players of like who's trying to push it, and it's like, all right, it's much better for me to bow out very early than let the stakes get here, and it's like I'm just gonna lose. There's no good outcome at that point. So that's how the game works. What we'll do is we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the game and how it functions. I enjoyed playing this. I always like the tactile feel of block war games. I think I liked this one the most from that standpoint because they're so big.
Yeah.
It's so cool just to pick and play with these. That was fun. But more than me just like feeling stuff out on the board, that's weird. I liked the tactical combat. It was quite different. Again, it's very abstract, right?
Yeah.
You don't actually have cannon pieces or cavalry pieces. Like it's all this abstract, but the stuff that you're doing in that as a mini game is so neat.
Yeah.
And pretty cool. And I really enjoyed that.
The maneuver on the tactical board was very interesting. Oh, I wiped that column out. There were 2 units there. I'm now going to bring up my other unit to then turn 90 degrees, right? And get into position to flank you. We were both looking for those opportunities.
Yeah.
And you could feel the pain when someone moves into position. You're like, oh crap, now I got a whole new thing to worry about.
And it's like, as soon as your flank gets starting to turn even a little bit, you're like, okay, immediately I have to pull back.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of playing for the retreat at that point.
Yep.
Because I'm going to take my one loss. We're going to live to fight another day.
Yeah.
Because the game's so brittle. If you get annihilated on the tactical board, you can lose the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost every time. You just lose too many pieces.
I really felt like the mechanics that Amabel chose worked well together. From the combat to the way that the combat pieces work, whether upgraded and downgraded, the blocks working together. I even enjoyed the 3 dummy blocks, although the dummy blocks...
Extremely tough.
It's
a handicap, effectively.
It is, because you lose that, and that goes towards your...
That's 3 of the 5 victory points, effectively.
So you gotta strategically place those to kind of force the enemy army to move up, and then you're going to evade them. And it's fairly easy to evade a 5 and 6 counter block.
That was one of the really interesting parts of the game. It's almost impossible to evade a small army.
Like 1 or 2.
And it is impossible to not evade
a large...
an army of 6 or more.
Yeah.
Which, the Austrians start with an army of 6 to begin with. You can always run away from that. You roll 1d6, and you have to roll equal to or lower than the number of blocks you're evading. And you're like, oh, it's easy.
Yeah. But
you can see him coming a mile away.
But I did like that as a strategy or as something I was trying to do. Because I'm like, okay, I'll just put the 2 blocks here and I'm going to evade into my bigger blocks.
Then
and then I'm going to
then
counterattack.
I'm doing your logistics for you. And
it's
like,
just kind of interesting. That? Yeah, there's a lot to this. It's not as simple a game as it might appear once you set it up. I think there's a lot of maneuver, choices. We even talked about, the terrain here. The Alps are kind of right here in the center, and you got to go around everything, right? And then there's this big lake, whatever. I don't know what that, Lago de Garda. That's a huge lake. It took forever for you to get around there.
Yeah, this western half of the map is so unbelievably slow to move on that it's like, do I even bother?
Yeah.
It's really tough choices.
2, 3 to 4 turns, maybe even 5 to get into the battle. So you're probably not going to be doing a lot there. There's just a lot to like here. I really like the lines of communicate. What do they call it?
You're in communication.
Yeah. I thought that was a really well done because it really encourages, particularly Napoleon, to kind of keep that center of the map.
You got to keep it.
Because you got to isolate and then try to take out. And if you get lucky on these damn dice, you're going to do it. It's very I just rolled a doubles. That's terrible. Oh, I just rolled them again. I kind of just set them down, but you got to look for that opportunity to take out 1 or 2 blocks. And the best thing is when you win and destroy, man, you're flipping your blocks and you're upgrading your guys, and all of a sudden your chick cup that you're pulling your units out of becomes pretty powerful.
I really liked that aspect of it. It reminded me a little bit of like Undaunted Stalingrad, right?
Yeah.
Any of those legacy style games where it's like, oh, my good guys get better, and then like my dead guys die. Like,
and they get worse, but they're still on my deck.
You start with like completely symmetric force compositions, and after that first battle, it'll be different.
Yeah,
because
you're talking about Stalingrad.
No, this.
You actually. Oh, yes, in the cup.
In the cup.
Okay, I'm sorry, not on the blocks.
No.
In the units in the cup.
Because you're drawing from those, and it's like, cool. If you win, your guys who survive get upgraded.
Get better.
Your guys who died get worse.
Yep.
But if you lose,
everybody gets worse.
Like, all your guys who died get worse, and your guys who were in the battle do not get better.
No.
And so, very quickly, what's available, again, it's a random draw, but like your force composition might improve, or it kind of goes both ways, or it might pull negative as a net if you lose.
Yep.
And so again, the decisions of when to retreat and like to accept the retreat is always important, because you're like, fewer of my guys will be worse for next time I play.
Yep.
And a game that puts those kinds of decisions, because it's so easy in war games. Like, how many war games do we play where it's like, oh, let's get into assault combat, everyone dies.
To the finish,
right? And we all do that. Everyone does that.
This game is not about that. If you're doing that, you're playing it wrong, in my opinion.
But like, at least it like puts that decision really in front of your face.
Yeah.
You can sit with it, you can lose, but like you're saving for that to the finish for the really important decisive battle where it's like, well, I'm either going to lose or I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And as such, the game has a nice journey to it, and it builds to a crescendo, and then someone wins. Yeah. I think that's really neat to have in a game.
Yeah, great production value as well. We already talked about the blocks. Ilya Kudryashov did the map. I think it's obviously a period map that was taken and either traced or copied and then manipulated with the colors and I think it looks really nice.
Point-to-point stuff on it.
It's a very attractive looking map. I think it looks good. So I think he did a great job there. It's in a 2-inch box. Very rare for Hollandspiele. In fact, Grass Crown is the other one that has a 2-inch box, right?
Yes, that might be the only one that I know of currently.
In addition to this one, yeah. So coming on up in the world, right? Getting a 2-inch box, a big 2-inch box. So I still like Hollandspiele boxes because they're small and I can put a ton in my cubes. But overall, I really like this game. I had a good time with it. I think we need to play this a lot more to really get a better feel for the strategy and the real decisions, because we were learning.
Grokking the gambling and the raising the stakes stuff
is pretty interesting.
Like, we did it, and it was like, it kind of escalated real quick. And like, well, I guess we're in this to the death.
Yeah.
But like, figuring that out where you can work it and be good at that would be really rewarding.
And we talked after the battle. I'm like, I should have retreated when you offered the 2, because I would have come out better in the end than losing what I did.
Yes.
And that's a decision, I think. But I think part of me, though, I always believe I can roll that 10. I always believe that 10's coming up. Oh, a 10. And it's...
But heaven forbid that 10 is on double 5s.
Oh, my gosh. I mean...
That's what's so cool about it.
And that never happened, though.
No.
We never rolled boxcars or double 5s, which would have not been a hit.
It would be so deflating.
Well, you might as well stand me up and kick me right in the solar plexus.
I might concede a game if that happens.
Right. I would throw the dice, then I would concede,
It's like, I finally destroyed your best unit.
There's a lot to like in this game. There really is a lot to like.
And that's the game, right? In the end, it was fun to play.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is the most important part of a game.
And it was like 10 pages of rules.
Oh, if that.
With some good examples, full color examples.
It was very easy to learn this game.
Yeah, easy, but easy to learn, but it's going to be hard to really. It's going to take you some time.
Yeah.
To really master this.
So, Siege of
Well
Mantua
done,
from
Amabel.
Hollandspiele. It was very fun. Check this out. A unique block war game. Yeah, check it out if you're interested. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.